Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the 15th incarnation, the Lord assumed the form of a dwarf Brahmana, Vamana, and visited the arena of sacrifice arranged by Maharaj Bali. Although at heart he was willing to regain the kingdom of the 3 planetary systems, he simply asked for a donation of 3 steps of land. Purport. The Almighty God can bestow upon anyone the kingdom of the universe from a very small beginning, and similarly He can take away the kingdom of the universe on plea of begging a small piece of land. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swaparantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gauda Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I feel very unqualified to be sitting here amongst so many exalted devotees. And at the same time, I'm very happy that I'm sitting here with a group of friends that we all went to recently to Buckland together. And we attended a mentorship retreat with His Holiness Sachinandana Swami. And I'd like to thank Kishan specifically for taking so many nice notes from all the seminars. And I will try to use some of those points today in accordance with these 3 verses. So I was just contemplating lessons that can be learnt from the 1, 2, 3, 4 avatars are mentioned within these 3 verses. So with your blessings, I'll try to mention a few points. So lessons from Dhanvantari. Anyone know who Dhanvantari is? Rishi? Yes. So at the time of the churning of the milk of ocean of milk, Dhanvantari came out with a pot of nectar. Later on, he gave that to Mohini Devi, because otherwise there would have been too much chaos. So, this pot of nectar, I was thinking, is something that when drunk, it brings about transformation in one's life. And so I was thinking that the theme of today's class could be that we have so much information in our lives. We're constantly bombarded with information through social media, hopefully also through the in Bhagavatam class. We're going to so many sanghas, we're going to so many events, so many retreats, and we're learning so much. So hopefully all that information is becoming transformation within our lives. So that was the lesson I took from Dhanvantari. Lessons from Mohini Devi. So as we know, when the demigods were churning the milk of ocean, the ocean of milk, they were turning, and they were doing this all together. Even the great snake Vasuki, he also helped. Kurmadev came together. He said, "You can place the mountain on top of my back." So all the demigods were working together, and that's why they were getting so many results. But there was two people, actually one person. There was one person that became two people that wanted to do his own thing. He said, "Forget about these demigods, forget about the demons. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to try and sit between the sun god and the moon god and try to steal some of this nectar." And it worked. Yeah. He did get some of that nectar. But then his head was chopped off. So sometimes this is what can happen when we try to take our own path. I was just listening to the other day, Gorgopal Prabhu. He's got all these wonderful videos that he's putting out on social media. And his latest video, I believe, is about the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And his contemplation, you can just see a pure devotee, whatever he sees, he's constantly remembering Krishna. So the Golden Gate Bridge is the most touristical bridge in the world. People from all around the world come there to take pictures. But when Gorgopal Prabhu saw the bridge, he saw something different. He saw that the Golden Gate Bridge is made of 27,000 wires, approximately. Little wires that are all connected together, and that's what holds the bridge. That's what holds the bridge together, which is almost a mile long. So 27,000 little wires. So it's not the effort of one wire. With one wire, definitely the lips would collapse, the bridge would collapse. But with all these wires together, it was able to maintain strong. Sachinanda Maharaj spoke about living in a community without envy. And I think this is really important when we work together. He says that this envy causes us to be unable to be joyous in the success of others. To feel joy upon seeing the success of others is what satisfies Krishna. This is what makes a community without envy. And we all know the story of that gentleman who came across the yaksha, and the yaksha said, "You can have whatever you want, but under the condition that your neighbor gets double the amount of whatever you get." And this man asked for many things. He asked for, he hadn't had mangoes in a long time. They didn't have Tesco back in the day. So he asked for a mango tree, and he was enjoying the fruits. But then he saw in his neighbor's garden, there was 2 mango trees. And then he was having a hard time getting around, so he asked, I'm assuming back in the day, for a nice chariot with horses. And then he saw his neighbors had 2 chariots with double the amount of horses, so 4 horses. Then he noticed that as his family expanded, his house was too small, so he asked the yaksha for a nice big house. And then one day he was in the bathroom and he was looking through his window, and he saw that his neighbor's house was double the height of his. And finally he asked the yaksha, he said, "My dear yaksha, please make me blind on one eye." And so then he went to see his neighbor, and the neighbor was blind in both eyes. So this is our nature. No matter how much success we have in the material world, someone will always be ahead of us. We'll never attain that highest pinnacle of material happiness. And so this envy can drive us crazy. And so the idea here, what the Bhagavatam is trying to teach us, what Srila Prabhupada is trying to teach us, is that instead of looking for this happiness outside, we should look for it inside. And it's funny, Will Smith recently posted that he was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and then he's been having a lot of meaningful discussions with his wife. And he was sharing on social media as well that he realized that, and I think this will be practical for all the grihastas out there, that when the husband and wife come together, they shouldn't be looking for happiness in the other partner, but they should come with that happiness already within them and work together and serve together for a higher purpose. So I thought that was a very good point that Will Smith picked up from the Bhagavad Gita. So Satyananda Maharaj was also saying that the Lord mainly recognizes those who humbly serve. And he gave a really interesting example. He said that, as youth, we do a lot of kirtan here and there. And so Satyananda Maharaj gave this example to us, that there was a kirtan mela in New Vrindavan, and as many thousands of devotees from all around the world, they flew in, and they were all doing kirtan. And Satyananda Maharaj and Radhanath Swami noticed that when they came into the kirtan, all of the shoes, thousands of shoes, were all over the place. It would have been impossible to find your shoes after the kirtan. But when they came out, all of the shoes were neatly stacked, just in order, even according to size, from bigger to small. And Satyananda Maharaj and Radhanath Swami were just speaking that the devotee that arranged these shoes in such a nice way probably got more benefit than all of the people that were chanting for 24 hours in that kirtan. That was their contemplation. So like that, Krishna sees the humble service that you give. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in a little bit. But now for the incarnation of Lord Nrsimhadev, I thought I would speak a little bit more about Prahlad Maharaj, as we know Nrsimhadev's story quite well. There's a really nice verse where Prahlad Maharaj gives the peace formula for the world. Politicians, the European Union, Parliament, they're constantly talking about how we can bring peace upon the world. But the answer is already there in the Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj says, and Janavi has nicely composed this song, Swastyastu Vishwasya Kala Prasiddhatam Dhyayantu Bhutani Jivamito Diyat Manascha Badram Bhajatam Adokshaje Aveshatam no Matira Pihaituki. And the translation is that may the entire universe be blessed with peace and hope. May everyone driven by envy, again, and enmity become pacified and reconciled. May all living beings develop abiding concern for the welfare of others. May our own hearts and minds be filled with purity and serenity. May all these blessings flow naturally from the supreme benediction. May our attention become spontaneously absorbed in pure love of the Transcendental Lord. So this is really how peace can be brought upon the world, by getting rid of this envious nature that we have. And Bhaktivedanta Purnamaraj gives a nice example between the difference between envy and jealousy. So it's okay to have jealousy in spiritual life. We see that a devotee has great attraction for Krishna, and we also want that attraction for Krishna. So that's fine. That's not a problem. We see a devotee going out on books and distributing 420 books in Hounslow, and we naturally want to do that as well. The problem with envy is that not only are we jealous of what the person has, but we also don't want that person to have it anymore. So I know that Kishan has all the Mangal sweets, and not only do I want those Mangal sweets, but I don't want Kishan to have any of those at all. So that's our nature right now. That's our position. So really what we have to do, and what Prahlad Maharaj is saying, is that we simply have to turn to Krishna. And that's something that Satchidananda Maharaj says every 5 minutes throughout his classes. We have to turn to Krishna. And my contemplation was that he's not even saying you have to surrender to Krishna. You know, for us modern devotees, that was in the 70s. Come to the temple, give up everything, join the ashram, completely surrender to Krishna. Oh, we can't do that. Fine. Just simply turn to Krishna. Krishna is there right next to you. Always taking care of you. And somehow we're not turning to him. We're turning to other things. And Maharaj says that, Satchidananda Maharaj was saying that we can think about Akrura's contemplation. There was 3 things that he thought about before approaching Krishna, because he was thinking that every person that Kamsa sent to Vrindavan was killed by Krishna. So he was thinking, I don't want to be killed by Krishna. I just simply want to deliver this message. So he thought he had 3 things to contemplate, and that will make him easily turn to Krishna as a friend. So the first one, his first contemplation of Krishna was that he's affectionate towards his devotees. Krishna has no place in his heart for the mistakes of his devotees. Like that, just like a father easily forgives any mistakes of the child. Krishna, he really doesn't, care. Because if we look at the bigger picture, whatever is happening in our life is very minute compared to eternity. Now, that doesn't mean that we take advantage of this and we do whatever we want. Otherwise, that would be the 8th offense to the holy name. So it doesn't mean like that. But whatever we've done, Krishna will forgive, and we can easily turn to Krishna. He's not upset with us, but he's actually very compassionate, and he's always waiting for us to turn to him. The second thing is that Krishna keeps his word. And that's something that Queen Kunti praised Krishna for. She said that the sunshine may become cold, the moonshine may become hot, but still your word will never fail. So Krishna gives us these promises, and we can be assured that he's not going to go back on his word. So that's the second thing that can increase our faith in Krishna. And the last thing is that unlike us, Krishna is very grateful for any little thing that is done for him. And we say little because Krishna doesn't really look at what you give him, but he looks at what you're holding back. And we hear this again and again. But it's a very interesting point that if you're giving Krishna $20 and all you have is $10, that is different to giving Krishna 9 million pounds for the Haveli when in your bank account you have 70 billion. So it's a big difference like that, for example. So if we conquer our false ego and get out of the fear, get this fear away of our affection towards Krishna, then we can see miracles happen in our life. So I'm just paraphrasing again what Satchidananda Maharaj was telling us in the retreat. We can see miracles happen in our life. And we see that when Shyamasundar Prabhu was here, I believe it was at the Pandavsena program where he said that if a miracle isn't happening every day in his life, then he knows that something is wrong in his Krishna consciousness. He's doing something wrong. Constantly, he's experiencing miracles. And if you read his book, when the temple was short of money, they saw dollar bills flying in the wind. When he was writing his book, there was something in his mind that he wanted to put into paper, but he just couldn't remember it. And there was an earthquake in California. And then one of Prabhupada's books fell on his lap right at the page where he was thinking of. So many miracles happened in his life. Meeting George Harrison, getting the manor, etc. So when we turn to Krishna, these miracles can happen. And lastly, lessons to be learnt from Bali Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj is given as the example of the devotee that completely surrendered himself to Krishna. But some practical things that we can apply in our life. The material world is full of problems. Everywhere you go, there's problems. And we shouldn't be in an illusion that Krishna consciousness will get rid of our problems. So that's an illusion. And even if a devotee says that he doesn't have any problems, just wait for it. He'll have problems soon. And there's so much quarrel and hypocrisy in this age of Kali. So even if you haven't come across someone that says something and then doesn't practice it in his own life, you will come across that. And I'm just taking this from a class that Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu gave. He's saying that we'll come across these quarrels. But Shruti Prabhu is kindly explaining to us that we have to learn how to deal with this problem. So spiritual life is not necessarily about our experience, but how we deal with this experience. And the example is given, if we pour, let's say, 250 grams of salt into this cup of water, and we drink it, it's going to be very salty. So that's our problems in life. We're drinking them in a small cup of water, and it'll be very salty. But if we put that 250 grams of salt into the lake here, then we can drink as much water as we like from the lake. We won't taste any salt. And so the lake where we can dissolve this salt is the association, or the lake of association with the devotees. So through cultivating loving relationships with the devotees, we'll find that even the problems will be coming to your life, and you won't even realize that they're problems. This is something Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu always stresses, that they'll become so insignificant because that 250 gram of salt is just dissolved in that massive ocean or lake, where you won't be affected by those problems at all. And I can give you an example of this. Something that I've experienced is that if I'm sitting, this is just a very practical example. If I'm sitting for a class, after an hour my legs will start to ache and I have to change positions, and it's quite a painful experience. But somehow every year we're able to go to Radhadesh Mellows and sit for 12 hours straight doing kirtan. So when our mind is focused on Krishna, hopefully, when we're there in association with devotees, any physical problems that we have, any mental problems that we have, we even sometimes forget about lunch. We forget about what we want to eat. We forget about all the problems in life just because we're completely fixed in devotional service. Another point that I saw from Bali Maharaj, which was also discussed in the retreat, was going above and beyond. I think Bali Maharaj is a perfect example of going above and beyond. He was he granted Vamanadev 3 steps of land, but he ended up giving not only the entire universe to Vamanadev, but his own self as well. So he really went above and beyond. And definitely, Srila Prabhupada went above and beyond. And the example was given that Srila Prabhupada was given the instruction to take Krishna consciousness to the West. And so what was said was that Prabhupada could have just put in the Bhagavad Gita in every library in America and UK, a few European countries, maybe Australia, and then He could have done that in a few months and then just gone back to Vrindavan and then just continued his bhajan. But he didn't. He went above and beyond. He made 108 temples. He introduced so many people to Krishna consciousness. So his spiritual master didn't really say, do all of this. He just gave pretty much a vague instruction. Just send Krishna consciousness to the West. But he really went above and beyond. And so we shouldn't be expecting in our own spiritual lives that our guru has to chase us, that he has to tell us exactly what to do. Our guru may give us a very simple instruction: just help me help Srila Prabhupada. That's what my spiritual master always says. Srila Prabhupada has asked me to keep Krishna consciousness going in the world. Please help me do that. And we can, in our own little way, just as the example given before, Krishna sees what you're holding back, not what you're giving. So even if it's just sweeping the temple every day, like when I was in Spain, there wasn't much opportunity to do anything. So I was just sweeping the temple every day after breakfast. But here in London, there's more opportunities. Every day we have options. Every day, every Friday, there's mantra lounge. There's harrow jamming, at least for myself. There's Menti Sangha. There is some kirtan at a yoga studio. There's Friday night bhajans. Just one day of the week, we have 6 different options to go to. So many opportunities are presented to us here in London specifically. So there's really no excuse to not be engaged. And of course, if that's not in your capacity, then whatever little service you do will also be given equal importance by Krishna. I really like this example, again, when we turn to Krishna, to see that not a blade of grass moves without his will. And the verse in the Bhagavad Gita Krishna explains that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere always rests in ethereal space, know that in the same manner all beings rest in me. So that can also give us some, make us a little more comfortable. We have so much anxiety, so much stress about planning the future, about things that we've done in the past. But if we just see that everything happens by the will of Krishna, then that's not a problem at all. And I was thinking of the example that when I first moved to London, I felt like Radha Gokulananda was giving me a really hard time. And I was like, why are they doing that? Why aren't they doing this to me? I've been chanting for so long. I grew up in Mayapur. Why are they giving me a hard time? Why do I have to cycle twice a week to the manor just to see them? It was something I couldn't understand. But later on, I realized that I would have just taken it for granted coming to the manor, like we do now. We just get on the car, 5 minutes later, we're here. We walk in, we say Haribol to all of our friends. We might see Krishna, we might not. We just walk out of the temple, do our own thing, get our plate of prasadam. But by that endeavor of working hard to get here in the very beginning, then I was able to see that, okay, it's not easy to get Krishna. You have to work hard. So that was the lesson that I learned from that. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki Jai, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki Jai. So I think they just answered my prayer. They're giving us their darshan. So I've been recently reading the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam because Satchidananda Maharaj was telling us that it's nice that we're all putting so much emphasis on the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, but actually Krishna's conversation with Uddhava is a continuation of the Gita. And I noticed that a lot of us will skip the 11th canto. Even, I think, in the Bhagavatam classes here at the manor, It just from Canto 1 to Canto 10. But actually there's so much juice in the 11th canto. Let me just get my thoughts together. So this is a conversation with the Yogendras and Maharaj Nimi. So Havi Yogendra is saying that devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things, these three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. So I know that this question is constantly asked. We've been practicing Krishna consciousness for some time. How do we know if we're making spiritual advancement? So there's a few things given here. Devotion, a direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. So all these things come together. Another way to see if you're making spiritual advancement, Radhanath Swami often talks about, is by how much compassion you're showing to other living entities. If you find that your heart is, again, back to the first point, envious, just thinking about yourself, then you know that you're doing something wrong. You're not really chanting the Hare Krishna mantra properly. But if you find that as you're chanting, you develop more compassion towards the devotees, towards other living entities, then that, the chanting, you're doing it right. And it's very interesting how Havi Yogendra explains what a Kanishta Adhikari is. He says that a Kanishta Adhikari is a devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of Radha Gokulananda in the temple, but does not behave properly towards other devotees or people in general. So he says that person is called a Prakrita Bhakta, or a materialistic devotee, and is considered to be in the lowest position. So he's setting quite a high standard. I think, at least speaking for myself, I still haven't come to the position where I'm faithfully engaged in the service of Krishna. I still haven't come there. What to speak of behaving properly towards other devotees, what to speak of serving the devotees properly. So that's something I have to look forward to. I know that I'm not chanting my rounds properly, and I have a goal set in mind for 2018. Increasing the faith in Krishna and serving the devotees. So I guess since we explained what a materialistic devotee is, then I guess it'd be only fair to explain what the higher stages are. So Havi Yogendra goes on to explain that an intermediate or second-class devotee called Madhyamadikari offers his love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a sincere friend to all the devotees of the Lord, shows mercy to the ignorant people who are innocent, and disregards those who are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this concept of equality is nice in a sense. Yes, we should be equal to everyone. But practically speaking, we have to learn how to deal with different people at the level that they're at. And this is something Krishna Leela can confirm with me. This is something that when you lead a kirtan, especially at Mantra Lounge, you really have to judge your audience. When you're leading a kirtan, it's not about what you want to sing, but it's about what the audience is able to receive. So like that, worshipping Krishna faithfully, developing friendships with Krishna, sharing Krishna consciousness with those innocent, and then avoiding the association of those that are envious, because whatever association we have, we become. So if we associate with envious people, then we'll naturally develop envy within our heart. And finally, yes, real equality can be seen when we come to a very advanced level of Christian consciousness, where the most advanced devotee sees within everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and understands that everything that exists is eternally situated within the Lord. So practically speaking, the Bhagavatam speaks about 3 levels of realization: Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. And so this first level of realization, Brahman, which is of the Uttama platform, is that the literal meaning of Krishna means the one that attracts everything. Krishna is the most attractive. And so practically we can apply this into our life, that everything that we find attractive is actually Krishna. So whatever it is, whether it's the new iPhone, or it's a relationship that we have, or it's whatever it is, we can see that the actual source of attraction is Krishna. And I think I over-prepared for the class, but I would like to just read one last verse regarding the holy name and Srila Prabhupada's purport, and then we can end there. So the verse is 11-40, and it said that by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord, one comes to the stage of love of Godhead. It's that simple. And this is something we were explaining upstairs to our MBS crowd, that the promotion for Krishna consciousness is that it's very simple. That's the only thing you have to do, is chant the Hare Krishna mantra. But then of course, like when we sign a bank agreement, there's the small writing. So the small writing is that we do have to look out for the 10 offenses. But really, it's just that simple. Just by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one comes to the stage of love of Godhead. Then the devotee is fixed in his vow as an eternal servant of the Lord, and he gradually becomes very much attached to a particular name and form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As his heart melts with ecstatic love, he laughs very loudly, or cries, or shouts. Sometimes he sings and dances like a madman, for he is indifferent to public opinion. So that's the level that we're trying to come to. And that's something that they always told us in Gurukul. Don't just try to be a face in the crowd. Don't be like everyone else. Be a madman. Fall in love. Go crazy for Krishna. Really go above and beyond, is what I'm trying to say. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that it is the nature of the Hare Krishna mantra that anyone who chants it immediately develops his loving ecstasy for Krishna. These symptoms are very prominently manifested in the body of a pure devotee. Sometimes when our students of the Krishna consciousness movement chant and dance, even in India, people are astonished to see how these foreigners have learned to chant and dance in this ecstatic fashion. As explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, actually this is not due to practice, for without extra endeavor, these symptoms become manifest in anyone who sincerely chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So Prabhupada is making this point that we don't achieve Krishna's mercy just by practicing the chanting. So it's not that by chanting 16 rounds every day, you're going to attain Krishna's mercy, but it's about the quality of those 16 rounds. And I usually, my motto is that quality rounds begin after 16. Because 16 is just your duty. You're doing this for your spiritual master. But the quality, if we really like Krishna, that starts on the 17th round. So that's just a meditation. So yeah, I have a lot more to share. But if there's any questions, comments, or corrections, then please go ahead.